Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next live stream. I'll be your producer for this session. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you for joining.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of our GitHub Copilot CLI hands-on series of 4 episodes. We are here today to learn about development workflows and AI assistants, quote-unquote agents, which we'll get to in a little bit. I'm just like, AI assistants? No, the word we love today is agents, so I think we should use that. So I am Renee Noble. I am a senior developer advocate at GitHub. I'm joining you from the Bijigal land of the Darug people in Sydney today. If you are joining us, please jump in the chat and tell us where you're joining from. We already have someone from Romania, which I think is very exciting. Aaron, tell us about yourself and where you are.
Yes. Thanks, Renee. Thanks for having me. My name's Aaron Powell. I'm also a developer advocate at GitHub. And I am in Sydney on the Gadigal lands. I think I've worked out that's the one that we're in. But yeah, I'm super happy to be here, and let's learn a bit more about agents.
Fantastic. Yes. So yeah, Aaron is in the chat to catch all your questions and funnel them to me, and also give his excellent perspectives, especially on agents. What Aaron has neglected to mention is that he is the owner of Awesome Copilot. If you have ventured there to get yourself an agent or a skill, or to look at this course, which is actually hosted, one of its places it's located is on Awesome Copilot, which is really exciting. So yes, we will be going through our GitHub Copilot CLI beginners course today, not just for beginner coders, but for anyone who is new to the CLI or wants to level up their CLI skills. So do check those out. We have 2 versions of the course. One is the raw repo, which you will end up cloning as part of the course. Or if you want to look at it in more of a website format, you can check it out on Awesome Copilot. So it looks more like this. So we'll be looking at chapters 3 and 4 today. But you can jump on to the repo as well to get it on your own computer, or use code spaces to go through the process. But we all need that because we do have some samples in here which we've set up, and they're particularly useful for today's episode with workflows in mind, because we've set you up with some buggy code that you will be able to debug with the Copilot CLI. So let's jump back to my slides. If you missed Chapter 1 and 2, don't worry, we'll cover the basics just a little bit, but I'm certain you can catch up. If you haven't done Chapter 0 yet, or essentially getting the Copilot CLI installed, be sure to do that. That is in Chapter 0 to tell you how to get installed on your terminal, which you can use either your native terminal for your laptop, or you can use terminal in VS Code as well. So yeah, make sure you get that installed and log into Copilot with that from your GitHub account. Cool. So as I said, we'll be looking through developer workflows today. That's the stuff you do every day: reviewing, refactoring, debugging, testing, and using Git integrations. And then we're going to jump into agents. What ones you already have that you didn't realize, how to get some more, and where to get them from the community, and build your own as well. So first up, let's head into our day-to-day, our developer workflows. These are things that you'll be well and truly familiar with, and we'll go through them. But first, we will relate this a little bit to one of our, real-life examples, because us developers, we're not so special. We have workflows just like everybody else, like this carpenter example, where they'll have a variety of different workflows that they have the different steps to go through and the tools to go through them each day. That they might be doing something for building furniture. They might measure, cut, assemble, and then finish with some varnish or something like that. or they might do a quality check, inspecting, testing joints and alignment. So these are like things that we do in our day-to-day. We're not all just like do code. We're going, okay, I'm building a new feature. I'm going to spec it out. I'm going to scaffold it. I'm going to code it. I'm going to test it. And then I'm going to release it. Or we might be fixing a bug, doing some assessment on a security issue, and a variety of different things. So we have different processes that we use for each one of those. So here are some of our most typical ones that a lot of our different other sub-workflows, let's call them, fit into. That might be code review, that might be refactoring, debugging, test generation, and of course, Git integration is the one that you're probably using every day. Aaron, what do you think about Copilot CLI in terms of how it is helping you with your everyday workflows?
I think the last two there are kind of the ones that I probably lean on the most. Like, I know we should write tests, but I'm also a realist about the fact that I'm not writing tests. And this is what I find things like Copilot are really great for, is taking the parts of the job that I don't enjoy or I find arguably tedious and being able to do them for me. So like I've written out a new feature, I've probably used Copilot along the way to help me build that out. And then just being able to say to, like, in the CLI session, because it's still got all that context of what we've been building, okay, now go ahead and write some tests. And I can almost guarantee that even if I did write the test, they probably aren't going to have the level of coverage that I would get out of CLI, because it is just, it's in that workflow. It is embedded with all of the knowledge about what we've just been doing. It can look at the history of how we got to the completed results that we've got and that we're wanting to check in. It can look at the files that have been changed and perform its own diffs to do that analysis, and then write that code for me. And same with Git integration, right? How many people enjoy writing pull request descriptions?
I've noticed
and how many people are writing
done halfway through. I'm like, oh, I started this thing and I had to do like 2 other live streams in event and I forgot what I started with. So I'm like, what's in this pull request now?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's helpful.
Exactly. So oftentimes, I've gone through and I've done my local review of all that code, and then I'll just be like, all right, Copilot, turn this into a pull request. And again, because it's in that session with me, like we've been having this back and forth conversation, for lack of a better description, it knows about all the changes that we've made, and it can then just write an actually useful pull request so that whoever is then reviewing it for me doesn't have to just rely on interpreting what I was intending by going through the diffs. They can read a description. Sure, we can argue about, that was an AI generated description. Is it truly valuable? I would say it is, actually. I'd say it's probably more useful than any pull request description I would normally have written, because it is actually going to the quote unquote effort of writing something that is detailed. And then that helps my peers that are then doing that review, because they are then understanding how we got to the dozens or so files that were changed, or the handful of lines, or whatever it is. They can then interpret that thought process that we achieved.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. Yeah, that was going to be my point about test generation. Like, we're all doing it, but how much are we doing it, right? And especially in advocacy, I'm going to say, like, we have a lot of different samples we maintain and make a lot of different projects. And it's like, it's good to have some tests in there, because we do want to showcase industry best practices, but having tests for every tiny little demo that we have is a little bit tedious. And even if you're just like getting the testing framework set up with a bunch of stuff, that's already hugely beneficial in terms of a time saver. And then you can go through and be like, oh yeah, actually, here's my human perspective on this test case. We might actually want to cover this edge case that like maybe wouldn't be apparent with the context that is written in code. So like when you bring that like business logic that hopefully we can capture, but at the same time, we might miss out miss some of those things that I often go, oh yeah, I would have forgotten at least the first time around to add that, option to the if statement. It's like, oh yes, the input could be something else, or it could be negative. And then what would I do? And Copilot's just like knocking that out already. Being like, of course, that's something we want to do, but it's not like the first thought that I have, because I can't have as many thoughts as Copilot in a second. So that's super helpful.
I just want to touch on debugging, because I think this one might throw people, because we're used to debugging of like, I'm going to launch the application, I'm going to stick breakpoints around and all that sort of stuff. But how did then that translate into a CLI model? And I'm going to use an example of something that I did actually just before joining this live stream. We have an event next week, and I've got a talk that I'm delivering at that event that one of my colleagues has written. I've cloned their repo, I've got it up and running, but unfortunately, the UI has, so like something's broken in the CSS. Like I know that there's something wrong with the CSS. I had a quick look at the network tab. I didn't see any failed requests. So I just popped up CLI because I knew I kind of had to jump on the stream, and I couldn't just, be spending, this time right now trying to debug that. And I just said, look, the UI is broken. I told it to use Playwright as an MCP server to inspect what's wrong with the UI, see if you can figure it out. And it did. Like I actually, just as we came on air, I saw the notification in CLI saying that it was fixed. I quickly refreshed the browser in another tab, and there we go, done. I'll go back and review those changes after this stream, but it's something like I would have got to it, but I had something else that was more pressing for my time right now, but I need to get that fixed. And just being able to delegate that debugging task away in a CLI session, I think has been like that. It means it's one less worry that I've got afterwards.
I love that, because it is 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon here in Sydney, and I've already, kept Aaron here till the end, to right at the end of the business week, to join me live here. So I'm really grateful to CLI to allow you to have this time. I mean, you don't have to do that after we go off air, which is good. Let us have a look at some of the CLI stuff then. So first off, let's jump across. Where is my? There we go. Okay, cool. So I've got my terminal here. As I said, you can also use it in your VS Code terminal, but I'll use it in here for today just so I have a bit more space to show you on screen what we are up to. And I'm going to start by opening Copilot CLI by writing Copilot. If you missed last time, we mostly covered how to get started, some basic commands on doing some reviews and things that will come up a little bit today as well as how to target specific files with the symbol usage, as well as targeting whole folders as well. So that will cover a little bit today. So don't worry, you haven't missed out too much. You'll be completely fine. But you can always go back and watch episode 1, as well as do all of the exercises in episode 1 or in chapter 1 and 2 of the course, including the assignment, which will give you a more in-depth overview than we can do here today, because we are in both episode 1 and episode 2. We are covering 2 whole chapters in only 1 hour. So it's really dense education here for your Friday afternoon, but thanks for joining us to learn, and hopefully you've taken the last bit of the day off work, or if you're joining from Romania, you've joined really, really early, but I love that. You are starting your Friday off with some CLI education, which will be exciting. So to get started, I've opened the CLI by writing Copilot, and I am here in interactive mode. And to just get started with our code review, I'm going to copy in one of the things from the course. I've tried to choose the ones that are not going to write too much, take too long to think about things today, because we do not have that much time. So we're just doing one of the simple examples for a simple review for code quality. So I've said review at samples/book app project /bookapp.py for code qual. Well, that didn't copy all of the words, but that's fine. It'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I do enjoy how Copilot has meant that my poor typing or rushed spelling doesn't break things these days, especially in live streams and live events. It's really handy to not have to spell exactly properly. Cool. So we can see it's gone and done a quality assessment, and it's got all of these very specific looking fail and pass things going on here around functionality, lacking type hints, bare except clauses, and some input validation and testing. No PyTests tests are found in this module, and then a couple of priority things that it has here, the top 5 that it's given us. So I'm like, okay, cool. But if you look at this, you might go, that's a fairly specific format for that to come out in. Why might that be?
That was going to be my first question to you. Of like, that's very structured. Like,
yeah.
I'd assume this might be the kind of thing that you would have in your team, and like this is part of your your check-in process or something like that. Like this is the format that you want to follow, and the patterns and the guidance and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that is something really handy that you can put in a skill, which we'll talk more about in episode 3 on Tuesday next week. But if we go into our skills in here, which are things that can get invoked by Copilot CLI and agents that you put in here automatically, we've got this code checklist skill that has things like a to-do list of checking that all functions have type hints. That's why that one was specifically there. And there are no bare except clauses. So it's giving pass fails on each ones of these. And then we had our input validation checklist and then our test checklist, which we just didn't have any tests. So that didn't go very well. And then our output format of pass fail, as well as a summary list. So that's why that looks so oddly specific. And we run it again, it will keep looking like that every time, which is really handy if you do have requirements for your team or your organization for specific checking, and also for a specific way that you want things to turn up in PRs, in test running and things like that. So we could have a variety of different kinds of checklists here. This one is for a code review, but we might also include things about security testing, whether it's in this one or as a separate skill. And we could have as many different skills and checklists as we want to help us with that reviewing process. Anything to add on the skill front, Aaron?
Not yet. As I said, that's what we're covering off next Tuesday. So you're
that's true. That's true. We don't want to go too deep. But yes, that is a pretty fast way to get our review done, and we can see that here now. And we could go ahead if we wanted to and refactor some of these, because it's kind of got that context in there that it's had a look at that code already. But mostly this is formatted for our eyes, given we have told it with Markdown how to do that. I think that's something that's really exciting about both skills and agents, which we'll talk more about, is that it is just written as human readable Markdown, asterisk. We'll talk more about, we've got these checklists for skills, but we can also get them to run code related tools, whether that's running commands in your terminal or running commands in your terminal to run a Python file or any other tool that you might actually code, which I think those are some of my favorite ones to like get them to be able to use actual tools that I've coded that are beyond what a generative AI can do and think about by implementing something myself and be like, this is something I'd like to use on my resources when I create. So,
and I imagine like, you could now just prompt Copilot to then go in action across that checklist as well, because as you said, it's got that context.
Absolutely, and we can just go in here and what was it called? Code checklist is just in there. We can access our skills just from there, as well as our agents. We can access them in there to change to the different modes. But that's really handy if you just wanted to just run that checklist, as opposed to running a review, which maybe you have multiple different checklists that run as part of a review that all have some description there that tells them that this is related to a review. Because yes, here, we'll talk more about this next week, but we do have this description because you might be like, how did it know to run this thing? It's not called review, it's called code checklist. So it has this description available that helps it know, hey, that seems relevant to my reviewing needs. Okay, let's do some refactoring now. So where is my next command? Cool. So we've got let me just pull up the course actually. So we can kind of see there's a bunch of different things in the course and you can run whatever ones of these that you like as part of this. But yes, we've got all these collapsing things in here. For our refactoring, let's just choose one of these simple ones, which will not take too long to run in our limited time on our Friday afternoon. Let us ask it to add type hints to all functions. I reckon that's a good go. Yep. And jump back over here and let's say, hey, for the utils file, we want to add type hints to all of the functions. So, yeah, I've really been enjoying things like refactoring or, yeah, kind of getting best practices. I find like if I'm using, whether it's Copilot CLI or chat or wherever it is, getting best practices because it's like, oh, hey, actually, this would be better as this way because of these reasons. And you might not know to go and look for those things and to like re-upskill in an area that you thought you were up to the latest, hottest ways of writing your code, but actually there's a new way and it's like, hey, do this, it'll be better for you. And like, oh, thanks for giving me the heads up. So I have been really enjoying that aspect of it. So we can see here that it has said, okay, cool, let's change this. We've got to add this type type hint here, more type hints here for the getting the book details. I could say we don't want to see file operations for the rest of my work in this folder, but that would make the stream less good because we wouldn't get to see all of the code that it's generating. So I'm going to do these one by one for each of these. And we've created 3 type hints in each of those. And that's also, I enjoy that workflow where it does show me each of the things because, yeah, I find that helpful to make sure I stay engaged with the code and where it's up to and where it's at and how, what I might want to do with it next, in fact. Yeah. So we've got type hints. Great. I'm sure if we ran our reviewer again, it would be like, yes, we're passing on another thing. But we don't have time for that right now. So we can see that has gone well. But there are also other things that I'll also quickly show that we could do in terms of that review. Once again, we could review multiple files for refactoring to improve like how they work together. And I think that's a big win, whether it's 2 files or a whole folder, having the full context of how it all works together, because at the end of the day, this is a machine that's running. It's great if the engine works and the tires are pumped up and every individual bit is functioning, but if they're not connected, then what's even the point? So That's always nice to have that overview and be able to take all of that context in, as well as having great documentation. So I think that's a big win. Adding documentation, I think, has to be one of the biggest wins for using something like Copilot CLI. To be like, oh boy, I need to show this to somebody else, and I know how it works, but nobody else is going to understand except Copilot, my friend, who helped me write it. So having that ability to quickly add in a bunch of documentation to help everybody get on board with the project is really great.
And I think it's also really good, like the idea of adding documentation, like having it write out the documentation is, like I said, not just so that, the next person doesn't look at you like you're a mad person, but it then means that later on, as you're doing more with Copilot, it has that context kind of built into the code base. So it is able to then understand the code even more than just by purely parsing the code.
I think something also useful is with documentation, it will write something there in English for us that says what it does. And if you go, hey, actually, I had this other case, or like that doesn't say what I expected it to say, you can be like, maybe we need to have a look at this. Or just, the next person who looks at this code might just be me, but in like 5 months. And I need the help as much as anybody else who's coming on board with this code freshly. So that's always helpful. Last one before we go on to debugging is you could do some safe refactoring by generating some tests, and we'll talk more about that when we get up to testing. But yes, with one of these multi-step processes, you could say create some tests to check, to make sure that work completely against what I currently have, and then refactor. And now you have the tests to compare against. So big win if we go about doing it that way, because like now we've got tests and now we can have better code that passes those tests, and then it's only up from there, I believe.
Green builds. It results in green builds, and that's all that really matters.
Go to green, stay green. We love it. Cool. So we will have a look at some debugging next. And I think, this will be fun. So we've provided some buggy code because the app that we gave you, of course, to do work with Copilot CLI on is obviously extremely good. All, 5 of its files. Where is it's over here. But we also, wanted to make sure you had the chance to debug some things. So we've also given you this buggy code file, which has some less good code in it. that you can. Oh, and we have buggy app, book app buggy. So the worst book app, we've got good book app and we've got buggy book app. So we can work on this one with our refactoring. So let us go and grab one of these commands.
I'll only point out that there's only JavaScript and Python that are buggy ones. The .NET version doesn't have bugs in it. That's why it's not in the buggy folder.
That's sad. You'll have to add your own bugs and then you can test it. Okay, so with this, we could take in, you might have some user feedback from why it's not feeling so good to use. So let's take this one. And there's an issue when you are finding a book by author, it doesn't work for partial names. Debug why this happens. And we'll jump in here and pop this in. Okay, and that will think away for a little bit. And then I do believe it's going to hit an issue because of how something we set up in this course. No, it doesn't. Are you going to do it? Because we have added into our agents.md file to not fix the buggy code because we have some configurations to allow us to that will automatically update the course with new releases. So I was going to go across to our markdown agents.md file to talk about agents.md here because it was supposed to trigger that. I triggered it in the practice and it triggered it in the EMEA and US version of this same stream that ran this morning in the US time zone. But sadly, it hasn't triggered. So I guess we'll just have to go with the fix. Then, oh no, it has. Important, according to agents.md, I should not fix bugs in sample book app buggy. They're intentional for debugging exercises. I should just explain what the bug is. So it has done that, which is good. So now I can talk about that. There's too many good things coming out in the CLI that I missed it. And that one is over in here, in this file that I prepared earlier. So we can see agents.md is kind of our first stop for Copilot CLI in terms of instructions that we want to provide as a user. Do you have a perspective on how people use agents.md, Aaron, that you like to share?
Yeah, so there's multiple layers of the way that we can control the behavior of Copilot. And one of the first ones of that was the Copilot instructions file that we could put in so they're all markdown files. I'm just going to omit the .md suffix, which you would put into the .github folder. And that was where you would put something that you want to then control how Copilot was going to behave. You could put this kind of an instruction in there. I'm not sure if there is a Copilot instructions in this.
No, I don't think there is.
No, but shameful. One of the problem that Copilot instructions has is that, well, it's only for Copilot. And if you've got a team where maybe you're trying out a couple of different ones before you ultimately settle on Copilot because it's going to be the superior, we wanted a way that was just more consistent, like a naming convention, and that's kind of where your agents.md comes in. So it's influencing by you write down in your markdown what it. So some generalized behaviors that gets added to the system prompt of the agent that you're running in. So it will append all this markdown in there to influence it in the directions that you need. As you're kind of working through it. As it's working through problems, it will pick all this up. It will then apply the behaviors that you specified in it, such as the don't fix the bugs behavior that's in there. It can then do other things, so like run commands and stuff like that if is required. So it's the kind of thing that's really useful for, say, defining linting rules, global things that are going to happen across the code base that you want the agent to always respect as a set of instructions. And you don't want to have to constantly type them out. Yeah,
absolutely. Like your founding principles that you might adhere to. And then layered on top of that, you've got things like skills and you've got agents as well. So I've got a collection of markdown things. I'll also note that you can have agents.md for a specific project, and you can also have an agents.md just on your local machine, kind of at a kind of rootish level that just applies to all of your projects as well. So if you're like, oh, something that I like is like always use Australian English in your spelling as opposed to US spelling. So then I don't have to go and correct it myself. So having something that applies to everything, because maybe you have some Python projects and you have some front end and you have some .NET projects, and you might not apply the same rules to all of those. But there will be some things that you're like, I always want this to apply to every project that you might want to put in your root level folder.
Yep.
And you can find out more about where to put that in the course. Okay, let us go back from our tangent to, yeah. Cool. So we are going to do this fix anyway. Fix it anyway, because I'm going to need something to commit in my PR later. That's okay. We'll do some test generation as well, and it'll be good. So it's going to do that, and it's going to push the fix. Here we go. I'll just put that full screen, and we can see we have just this one file of fixes here, which is great. And we're going to, let's leave that out a bit. It's gone too big. So yes, let us continue with that. Yes, terrific. Fantastic, cool. I think it's thinking about maybe some more things that it wants to fix. So we'll come back to it once it's sorted out our issues, much like how Aaron delegated. We have other things to talk about, so we'll just leave Copilot to do that while we talk about test generation. Cool. So let's jump back here. We've talked a lot about tests already today, because tests are really important. And we all love them. We just don't love to write them. We love when they're already there, and then you can run, I've made all these changes and I can run my new code, and then all of them go green. You're like, I did so well. Now we just need to have them there to go green. So we can generate a bunch of tests really easily with Copilot CLI, which is fantastic, really, to get us started on our testing journey in a lot of these cases. So let's see if it's done. That would be handy if it's done, because we've got some more stuff to do. It's done. Hooray. Okay, thank goodness our bug around the authors is fixed, because when we search for something like Tolkien, we wouldn't get J.R.R. Tolkien because it was a partial match. So now our very thoroughly built book app will be improved, and we'll be able to find our books in the 5 books that it contains much more easily. So let's grab that code now to generate some tests. So this is handy. So we can say, hey, here are some of the things we want to test for. We want to use PyTest. And as with all AI prompting, the more you can say about your stack, the better. Because if I just said, make some tests, I don't know what testing framework it's going to use. And then also to include what we want to test for, because it will obviously try and have a look at all of the code, but there's only so much context you can have, and telling it what you want to prioritize is also helpful in terms of make sure you did this because we gave you this context, i.e. edge cases with empty data. We want to look for that. Yep. So we should have tests for that. So I'm going to copy that across so we can get some testing happening. Generate comprehensive tests. Comprehensive PyTests include tests for adding books, removing books, finding by title, finding by author, marking as read, edge cases with empty data. So this should give us a nice foundation of tests that we can start working on. And that's going to work away for a little while. Do we have anything else to talk about while that one's going along? Do you have any extra perspectives on tests, Aaron?
I was going to say that something that I think can feel a little disarming to people when they're first starting with CLI is that at the moment it's saying generating PyTest, but we don't kind of know what's happening. Mm-hmm. And that can feel like, well, we're like, what is it doing? Why is it taking so long? And whatever the case may be. By using Control E, or it's probably Command E on a Mac, you can actually expand out what's happening. At least pretty sure it's Command E. Otherwise, I've given you a bum steer and I need to go look at the docs. But you can actually expand out what's happening, because by default, Copilot will collapse down its thought process and things like that to just like a really one-line summary. But if you want to be able to see a bit more about what's happening, behind the scenes and understand how it's getting to the results that it's getting, you can do that as well.
We'll have to see. I am a strange person who has a Mac, but I have remapped my keys to Windows keys, and I have this Microsoft keyboard. So I don't know what it is a lot of the time, especially in terminal things.
Yep.
But I've pressed some buttons and it may have changed things, but it was also waiting for input. So I'm not sure that it was happy about me doing it at that point. But you can all try at home as well to work out how you too can receive more information. Because while you're waiting, it would be nice to have something to read some of the time. So, but yes, we have generated some tests up here, a whole bunch of them. So we've got a bunch of coverage of the different things we asked for there. And now it wants to see if we want to run our tests. So let's give it a go and see how we go on our various tests. Oh, maybe I've done it. It's printing a lot of stuff. So I reckon that I have activated it.
I just googled the reference. I'll pop that into chat if everyone wants to have a look at all the shortcuts and stuff like that. Yeah. So and then if you press Control E again, it's then going to collapse that back down, so you only get your summary along the way. But yeah, I found, particularly when I was first starting out with using CLI, that it did feel, like I said, a little disarming because I didn't know what was happening. And being able to expand that out and actually see what was going on is quite valuable because you can ultimately see how it's coming to the conclusions that it's coming to, rather than just relying on a one little line summary.
Yeah, I think that's also really helpful in terms of your own awareness, your own learning. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought to do this in that way. And by reading through what Copilot CLI has done, you get that information rather than just a black box of I did it for you. Teach a man to fish as opposed to, give a man a fish.
Yep.
Take what you can from the output and use it for yourself, because that will also help you with future prompting and future architectural design and ideation, because at the end of the day, you're designing and this is a tool that's there to support you. But the more you know and know about where you want to take something and the tools and the direction you want to take in that, the better you can prompt and the better that will be executed. So
yep.
That's always be learning. But we can see here that our 33 tests have passed and they cover all of these things, which is really great. So that's looking good. I think we can say we've done some testing and we are ready to, now that we know that it's passing these tests. I will say that if you generate tests, you should definitely read the tests. Definitely read them to know what they do and that they've covered the things and that they cover your business logic and any edge cases that might not be captured in the code, because it has the context of the code. But if you haven't covered a case that you haven't been able to describe and it isn't described in the code, it's not going to know about that. So it's not going to test for that. So super important for you to read the code, have somebody else review it as well, and oh, I forgot about this really important thing that customers will definitely notice. So yes, as always, read and check. But now we have glanced at our code and definitely know that it's good. We can now be okay, we're ready to do something with Git. We want to push this. We want everyone to have these tests because everyone should be running tests before they push. So let's just ask it to write us a PR now that we are comfortable with everything we've got going on here. So create a PR to push up the latest changes and on a new branch. And I think it probably would actually take care of the new branch, honestly, if I just didn't put that in there. But I like to be specific, as I've said.
Better safe than sorry. The last thing you want is to be caught pushing straight to main.
Straight to main. Who needs the PR? Just commit straight to main. So, okay, cool. So it's taken a look at, yes, we want to both create a commit message and to commit our things. So our type hints, our author bug fix, and our PyTesting suite. So we wanted to push, commit that. And on our new branch, which we can see here, check out branch code quality improvements. So that's a pretty good name. which is great. It's nice to be able to make the changes and then make the branch name, because a lot of the time I'm like, I'm making a branch name. And then by the time I've finished it, it doesn't match what the name was exactly. I think if you work in like a place that has tickets to fix, it probably makes more sense because you have a GitHub issue and then you do something that matches that. But I don't know, in DevRel, nothing ever matches. So yes, let's go ahead and push that up. Push up a new branch here.
It's also worth noting that in the pull request description, it's indicated that it's been co-authored by. So that I think is helpful for people that are then doing the review to understand that this is AI assisted development rather than artisanal development of fully handcrafted and things like that. And I think it's from a really good idea from a trust perspective. That if someone comes to you and asks you like, how did this work, and they know that you did this in conjunction with Copilot, rather than like, why did you make XYZ decision? That seems kind of crazy that you've chosen that. The model did that. That wasn't me. I can just like palm responsibility away.
I would like to say that if you are using AI, it is best to be able to defend anything that you have created with AI, because otherwise they'll just hire AI instead of you, I guess. So, you need to be a team. You got to have each other's back, meaning you got to read this stuff as well. Okay, cool. Let's click through here and see if my pull request is up. Okay, here we go. Cool. It's happened, which is good. I thought it might have issues because at GitHub we have high security login. So I was like, it might not work, but it has worked, which I love. All from our terminal, which is great. And with this list of changes, which is better than what I would rate, right? And a whole table of test coverage, which is, I never would have done that. So I'm a big fan of that. I am, of course, going to delete this one at the end of this because I don't want to fix any of these changes because they're important to the educational quality of the course by keeping those bugs in there. But so you too can enjoy the bugs. But I think we've covered off our...
I was just going to add one other note just from the CLI, you'll actually notice as well that it is now listing the branch that you're on. So where it's saying the location of the code, you'll see that, so documents, Microsoft, et cetera, you'll see that that's the branch that Renee has been working on with Copilot, so that you're able to you now know that you're not working off main. And if you then, okay, cool, this is done, let's start working on the next thing. You realize you would be branching from this point because you're not directly seeing that underlying terminal and obviously performing the Git operations against it. We're surfacing up the information that is most likely relevant for you. Also, it's possible because you just zoomed in and we're running a compressed amount of screen real estate. It will actually indicate the pull request ID in that. Oh no, there we go. Now it's zoomed out, you'll see that the pull request ID is also listed there. So if you close this session and then came back to it later on, it would go, oh, you're on this branch. There's a pull request against this branch so that you can jump back into that quite easily. And it should actually be a clickable link, interestingly enough.
It is. I've accidentally clicked it now and it's opened it again. But it's closed because I need to be able to see my notes. Okay. Thanks for that, Aaron. Absolutely. I do love to have as much stuff in my terminal here as possible. And when I'm working my normal terminal, I have my ZSH profile set up to have a bunch of this stuff. And I kind of didn't notice it was different because it's got all the same stuff that I normally like to show there anyway. So thanks for having my back, CLI. I'll have you back. Don't worry. When we have to defend a PR, it's all good. So let us jump across to chapter 4, though, so we have some time to talk about agents in our remaining 16 minutes. But it's okay because we've already talked a bit about them, which is exciting. But we've been using them a bunch as well, including in episode 1. So let's talk a little bit about what we already have in terms of agents that we've used. I think most notably we have the plan agent. So we can write plan in here, and then we can head over here, and it operates in a different way because agents really are a persona that's putting on People like to say it's an expert, but at the end of the day, these are all trained on the same models. It's got some extra specific instructions on it, much like we've all gone to school and finished high school or whatnot, but we might have gone and specialized in a specific area, and we have some things at top of mind when we go and do some work. So that extra information, extra context is available to it in terms of like what we want to look at. So our planner obviously is focused on, going through and making a document that looks like a plan rather than going and making code. So it's going to prioritize that over making code, and it won't make code because that's not what it's there to do. So it's focusing in our, usage of Copilot onto a task that we wanted to work on, as opposed to using the general agent, which is just what we're using when we're not in a specific mode. So there's a few other agents in here that you can get by going / do I have explore? I don't. Yes, there's a couple of different things. Maybe
if you type /agent, it'll bring up the list of the agents that you've currently got installed.
Yes, of course. That is on my next slide. Cool. So yes, we can see agent. If we write agent, then we'll have the list of agents that are installed here. So these are like our extra agents, as opposed to the built-in ones like plan that we might use like that. So we'll talk a little bit about how these got here in a minute. But we know that we've already been using agents and those different personas throughout. Why would we use an agent? Much like when you're doing work on your house, you might have a handyman who you come and get in to fix the hinge on your kitchen cabinet, or put a handle back on a door, and various odd jobs like that. But when you've got something specific that needs doing, you might want to get someone with some skills and their own checklist of safety things and requirements from the government that needs to be done when you're doing something like electrical work. I don't know that I want to see someone unqualified doing electrical work, because it could get messy over here. And in fact, in Australia, you're not allowed to do electrical work unless you are a qualified electrician. So our specialists have specific tools, i.e. they're rubber-coated tools for our electrician. They have knowledge of how to do things and practices around how to do that the most safely, to check that it's done correctly. And it might have reporting something to the government, or writing the date that something needs to be checked again on your new electrical circuit and things like that. So that's why we get in a specialist to do a job around the house. If we want a job done well, we'll get someone in to do that, as opposed to just getting somebody who might be able to give it a go, which is a lot like our regular unspecified Copilot CLI agent, which has a broad knowledge, but not necessarily a specific agenda that it's trying to get done. So the same applies to really any job. I know in any circumstance, like if you give me a lot of different tasks to do, I'm going to try and balance them all out the best that I can and try and tick off as many bits across that whole broad perspective. But I only have so much attention. I only have so much context window, really, as a human, just like an AI. So I can only keep so many things in memory at a time to make sure I get them done and get them done well. So having something like, hey, I really want to go into this mode, which I can do with a person, be like, okay, today I'm just working on this. I'm just going to go, really thoroughly through this process. Doing that rather than trying to spread myself out over all the things that I could think that might be important is more efficient for me, and I'm going to get better results. So as an engineer, you're doing things like code review, testing, security, documentation. These are all different things that you might be like, okay, today I'm just going to write a bunch of documentation. But these are also things that we can specify as an agentic persona of something. We're like, okay, your job is security. I want you to check for these kinds of different security vulnerability vectors and really make sure that our code lives up to these standards, doesn't expose any credentials, and it will go through and do those specific tasks. So, okay, let us go and have a look at some of these agents then. What do they look like? Because we have had a look at a skill. let's jump across to the repo. Okay, those are our skills. Here are our agents. Okay, so let's jump into Hello World agent, a very useful agent. You're a friendly assistant who responds with encouraging messages. Don't we all need that, right? So that's always helpful to have on deck. We also have our PyTest helper. You're a testing expert focused on PyTest best practices and has these bits of expertise. And testing standards as well. So use descriptive names, test names. I think like things like that of like, what do I want this to look like is stuff you can put in here. So these are things that you might have opinions on, or your organization is like, this is how we structure our things. Like maybe you need them to work for other workflows, and having things that generate tests in that same structure would be really helpful. And this is where you would specify that. And finally, we have our reviewer agent in here as well. And this is you're a Python specialist focused on code quality and best practices. And you've got coding standards as well. And you can prioritize things when reviewing them with critical, with security issues, missing errors, missing error handling, that's high. And then we've got minor improvements, that's down low. So we've got like kind of capturing what we think about as developers in just human readable text that's easy to update, and make sure that everything is working how we would want it to work. It's like giving it guidance without having to write this out every single time.
Yep.
Do you want to say anything extra about agents, Aaron?
Yeah, so do you want to just with the Python reviewer agent that you've got open there, just scroll back up to the top of it. So what people might have noticed is what Renee has just highlighted there, which is the front matter. So while an agent is fundamentally just a markdown document, we can also provide some additional information about that. So like the name of it. So that's what came up in that /agent command in the CLI. But I think the most important one here is the tools that it has available to it. So from here, we want to contextualize, as Renee was talking about, what our agent is capable of doing. If we wanted a generalist agent, we would just leave the default one that comes with Copilot CLI. But in this case, we might want to scope it down so that it isn't doing everything and anything, but instead we're only giving it permission to do certain things. In this case, it's going to be able to read files, edit files, and perform search across the code base. This particular agent is not going to be going out and searching the web or performing terminal operations to commit files or generate new files, because we've scoped it away from doing that. Now, there's a bunch of other things that we can specify in front matter as well, and there's a lot of different tools. We can also configure it so like what things out of MCP servers that we'll be doing. So if we were using, say, the Microsoft Docs MCP server, we might then create an agent that is specialized around searching for searching for answers within inside of Microsoft Docs. So in that case, we would not give it generalized web search as a tool, but instead would give it the MCP server tools from the MS Learn MCP server. So now it's still able to go out there and do that search, but it's only doing it in the sandbox, which we're saying that it can operate within.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's having this written well is really important, so that it knows what it's supposed to do, as well as these tools are not going to be too difficult to get rid well, but also having people know what it is supposed to be used for, which we can see, maybe not in here. I can't see the description in here, but somehow I'm sure you can get a description so people know what to use it for. Or you can also have skills suggest that an agent would be good to use. So they won't automatically choose an agent. So we do need to select an agent ourselves. So let's go to Hello World and tell me what you do. And then see what it does. But we could also maybe in a second run the review, and we'll see how we get a different output structure than we did when we did the review at the start of the episode, because it does have a different requirements list of what it does. So this one's just really happy to see us. So that's its main job, is to be happy, which we love that. But it's told us what it can do, which is nice. And we can ask that for any of our agents as well. But let's change to work agents. Let me
So,
agent. And then
so another way that you can invoke the agent. So obviously this drop-down list is great because it gives you that full view. Agents, we saw Renee do it earlier. If you do a slash command, so you could do like slash Python reviewer, and that will then convert you into that. It should bring up that agent.
what was its name? Did it have a note? Yeah, that is its name.
It's Python reviewer.
That is its name.
And
interesting.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Okay.
We've possibly found a bug that we're going to have to log with the engineering team. But yeah, you're supposed to be able to do a slash command and have the agent available there, so you don't have to. You've got hello world. Oh no, that's probably the skill.
Maybe. Yeah, a minimal skill. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know where my agent's at, but that's okay. We'll use this method for today.
Well, yeah. Ignore Aaron. He's it's late on a Friday.
Yeah, I believe that it happens. That's how you get plan. I'm pretty sure it works. I will point out while we're here, once you've got an agent and you want to go back to general mode, you can go into agents and then you can select number 1 here is default, deselect current agent. But let's go and do the reviewer. And let's review one of the files. What files do I have in this folder?
Book.
Samples.
Yeah, samples. There's a book.
Let's review the buggy one. That'll be fun.
Yep.
That's good. Let's go. And we'll see what it comes out with in terms of priorities. And it's going to look different than the pass fail that we had earlier because we do see that it has a different structure for like those priorities are going to come out in those specific classes that it's given them.
Yeah. So essentially behind the scenes, all this is doing is it's replacing the system prompt or of the default agent with the custom agent we've got there. So that's how it then crafts it into being that specialist.
Amazing. Cool. So we can see we've run our review here. It's come out in a very different structure with all of these tables and whatnot. And it's giving us a much more kind of in-depth view, I'm going to say. And we've got all these, line by line things. So specific places there are issues, and then these critical, high, and medium priority. We don't have low priorities in this thing. It's all bad and buggy app in the buggy book app, which is how we like it, and we refuse to commit anything to fix that. So yeah, that's how we can use one of the agents and change into that agent mode. We have not a lot of time left, so I want to have a quick look at Awesome Copilot and then talk about how we can write a good agent ourselves, because we've still got, building custom agents. Oh, yes, we've done this. We talked about that. That's good. Building custom agents. So let's jump over to Awesome Copilot. Aaron, where would you like to go on this adventure? Prompt me like an agent. I will be your clicking agent.
Well, so there is a call out there for agents. So Awesome Copilot, for people that haven't come across it yet, is it's a repo that I manage that contains community contributed custom agents. So there was actually a question in the chat about custom agents and things like that. Consider this as a directory. I think it's probably about 700 now of different ways that we can customize Copilot. So we've got agents, we've got skills, we've got instructions, and so on and so forth. But we're going to focus on agents. So if we click through to the custom agents, and there's 204 in here, which I'm not going to get Renee to kind of scroll through massively because that's going to be an inefficient use of time. But we do have a search at the top, so we could search for Python ones. And then you can see these are the agents that have been contributed by members of the community for working with Python. So let's say the Python MCP server. So we can click install. So that's going to install it through VS Code. Otherwise, we can click onto it and it will show us the markdown file. So if we click on that, so this is the markdown. Give it a moment to download and all that sort of stuff. So this is that markdown file that we saw that you could copy and paste, or you click the copy button if you want to shortcut that, and then go through the CLI workflow of creating a new agent. So there's 200 odd in here, and there's a lot of different ones for different kinds of roles and responsibilities that you might have with inside of the team. So to the question we had in chat about like creating custom agents or anything like that, I would always say that the first point of call would be looking at Awesome Copilot. With over 200 in there, there's a good chance that they're already going to be covering off the kinds of scenarios that you're looking at. But I quite often create custom agents for those particular roles that I have with inside of the problem space that I'm working, because, well, I don't know everything, despite what my kids try to tell me. So I do need that, that expert in. Like, I'm not a Python developer, so I do need someone, or something at least, to help me along from a Python perspective. And yeah, we've got those sorts of things in there that can help constrain those requirements a little more.
Yeah, amazing. And just as we were looking at agents before, we can go into create new agent. As I mentioned, there's a project level one and a user level one. Might just want to add this project level one that I've copied. And then I would create manually, because I have all of my code ready to go.
Yeah.
And then I would just paste all of that in, and we're ready to go with our MCP server, Python MCP server, something. Very good description that will mean that we know what it's for later. These are where that was supposed to go, I think. No?
I think you put the entire description in the name.
Oh no, Aaron, what have I done? I was too excited to paste it in. Let's escape. Yes, we can go back. Everybody, there's going back. It's fine. We won't do that. I don't know how we're going to, just pretend that worked, everybody. Yeah. We don't have time to run it anyway, but that is the workflow. And you should put the name in first, not all the custom code, but you saw where the custom code would get put in. Before we head off, do you have any thoughts about how to design an agent well, Aaron, that we haven't covered already?
Yeah, so we've touched on a lot of the key points there. Things like putting in a good description so that you understand the context of it, scoping it with tools so that it doesn't have the ability to just do anything and everything. Instead, you're constraining it to the box that you want to have it operate in. Make sure that you format a bunch of pathways that agent is going to be doing. So you'll see in the ones that we have inside of the samples repo, and you'll find most of the ones on Awesome Copilot, they use like markdown headers to like create breaks between what the key, I hate describing it like this, but personality traits of the agent. So that kind of stuff. And make sure that it is aware of other things within inside of your repo. So someone mentioned earlier, like if you put like an at and reference files within inside of skills, the agent will be able to pick that up. You can do the same with an agents file so that you can scope that to various folders. But keep them concise, keep them scoped, because otherwise you're just building a generalist agent, and it's not going to give you the true value that you have out of having multiple agents that are able to operate within inside of your code base.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Aaron. I think, to summarize, just like with any person, if they were like new to your team, or you gave them a task and you gave them a list or like some instructions on what to do, and then you didn't do very good instructions, then they aren't going to do a very good job because they didn't have the context on like what this was like related to. They didn't know that they could use these tools, and that really would have made the job a lot easier and things like that. So the better you can describe something, the better results you're going to get. So put the time in there and save yourself the work down the line by doing it once, doing it well, and then using that tool as you go throughout your day.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Okay. Back to my slides. Awesome. Okay, so that's all of our chapter 3 and 4 content for today. I will be back next week without Aaron, sadly, but I will have Dave Glover joining me. But we really appreciate Aaron coming along, especially to give all his knowledge on agents as the owner of all of the agents that lives inside Awesome Copilot. Not that he made all of them, but he does accept them from people. He's the guardian of all agents there.
I have read every... I actually review, not just Copilot does a review as well, but I do review all of them. So I've read a lot of Markdown over the past 7 months or so.
Well, it's good. It's very human readable then, I guess. but that is one of the benefits of it as well. It's for writing and reading and using. So next time we will be talking about automating repetitive tasks with skills. So we've talked a little bit about what that is by looking through our reviewing skill. But we'll take a look at what they are, how they're different from agents and MCP servers, how you can create your own custom skill. And I've mentioned a little bit like that you can use skills not just as checklists, but also for other like more functionality use cases as well. And we've already heard today about how you can get custom agents. You can also get custom skills that way. So if you can't wait till Tuesday, you can go on Awesome Copilot and start looking for skills now. Until next time, do go ahead and do any of the exercises, which is most of them that we didn't have time to do from chapter 3 and 4 today in the stream, and do the assignment at the end, which really gets you to apply the skills that you get from the practical hands-on parts. And then sign up for next week's streams. So we've got Tuesday and Friday next week again with me and Dave Glover. It's going to be a great time. I hope you can come along. But yeah, I hope to see you then. And thanks everybody for joining today. And big thanks to Aaron for coming along this week.
Well, just before we sign off, someone did actually ask a question a while ago.
Yes.
And I didn't. So Daniel asked a question that I didn't want to interrupt our flow because it's a bit more of a meta question of like, so Copilot uses models from OpenAI, the GPT family of models. We use models from Anthropic, the Claude family of models. So the question is like, why would I use Copilot over the top of just going to ChatGPT as an example? And I think we touched a bit on this on the first episode, and then kind of reiterated that in this one. And for me, it's really context. So while you can go out to like an external system, by having this running on your machine that is still talking to a model in the cloud, it is embedded inside of the context of your code base. It is able to look at the files. You don't have to bring them up to the external tools or anything like that. So for me, that's one of the values that I see of it. The other is choice. So because we have models, like a lot of different models, whether it is the Claude family of models, it's the OpenAI family of models, or you use something like Bring Your Own Key, so you can tie into models from X or whoever it might be. The ability to be able to round robin through different models for different scenarios, I think, is really useful because some models are great at certain things, but they're not as good at others. I use the GPT 5.4 model as my primary daily driver because I find it's nice and snappy. It gets code done. But if I want to dive deeper into it, like into a problem, or have something that is going to be maybe a bit more of a longer running, more complex thing, I'll then flip over to a Claude Opus model because I find that they're better for those sort of deep research tasks that I get out of GPT. Now, if I was using just a specific vendor's tool, well, now I have to either deal with the limitations that they've got, or I have to jump across to another vendor, and now I'm paying 2 subscriptions instead of 1. So, yeah, Daniel asked that question in chat. I wanted to get back to it, but it was a bit beyond the scope of kind of what we're covering today. So hopefully you stuck around to hear me ramble on for that. But yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to add in that kind of context?
Yeah. I think something to note is like the other integrations. Like we've seen how we can easily integrate with the things that we've worked on today, like Git, for instance. And we'll get more into this when we look at MCP servers, but I think that's a good example of it. We have built in the GitHub MCP server, so we can easily use that to interact with GitHub and do cool stuff. You also have built-in things that you can use for interacting with your own local system, and it's easy to integrate other MCP servers to look at the docs or whatever else you need. So it's really more native to the development cycle as opposed to something like ChatGPT, which is as a chat messenger first. And then also to mention, I really like your point about the models. Like you get the one you need when you need it. And with your Copilot license, you can be using CLI. You can also be using the chat in here. If you're like, oh yeah, no, I feel like, because I kind of use these in different ways, and I'll often have both open. I'll have one in the side and one that I'm using differently in terminal inside VS Code. Let me get a terminal up actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have Copilot in here, or I might also be using the Control I, like, I don't know, cherry pick some item on Git or something like that. I can't remember how to do that Git command and getting it to give me those different terminal commands. So like there's a suite that I'm getting coverage of with the same license as well.
Yep. Cool. Anyway,
Cool.
I think we've kept people long enough. We're 9 minutes over.
They can go to their weekends. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming along. Do sign up for next week. I hope to see you there. There's that link again. I will drop it in the chat as well. But yeah, have a good weekend, everybody, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. I did leave a link to the chat in the chat for you guys to register to the next sessions in case you haven't yet. And if you haven't yet, why haven't you? So just check out the link in the chat, register, come join us next week. We are going to be live at the same time, at the same place, right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. I will also drop it's loading this link in the chat. If you could please take a couple of minutes, give us your feedback about today's session. We create these sessions for you. It's like we're working together as a team. So if you can take a little bit of time, give us your feedback about today's session, and hopefully we will see you again on Tuesday and Friday right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone.